Hey everybody, welcome back to Odd and Untold, the podcast where we talk about all things strange and spooky. And I'm joined this week for episode 34 by my buddy Josh, frequent guest co-host, frequent guest, and you're basically a co-host at this point.
Yeah.
I mean, you've been a guest, you started off as a guest, and now you're just co-host.
Yep.
And we are camping tonight in Burnt-Rossman Hills State Forest. And this is like the northern Catskills. We usually do the Adirondacks, so this is our first time together camping somewhere else. And we figured it'd be a great night to do a podcast. We came in, we're recording this this is Friday, February...
I think it was the 10th, right?
Is it the 10th?
Because we came in on the 9th, which was Thursday.
Yeah, so this is the 10th.
Yep.
Okay. So, we came in yesterday on Thursday, and it rained most of the day. It was fairly warm for February anyway, but it rained most of the day. We didn't have a campfire. We have one going now. But yeah, we didn't do much yesterday. We kind of went to bed early.
Yeah.
It was just raining, and then it would stop raining for a few minutes, and then start raining again. So
yeah, the wood was pretty wet. We didn't have a campfire. We did bring in some wood. We went and bought some store-bought wood and dragged it in with us just so we could have a fire in case the wood was wet. But so much of it was wet and it was still raining to boot, so we decided to hold off on the fire until Friday, which is today. So today we bucked up a whole bunch of firewood, and we got enough for probably like 5 hours at least. And now it's nice and warm. The wind has died down. The rain has stopped. And, we're just hanging out in the woods.
Yeah, so today we woke up. It was sunny, but windy. The wind was real rough today. It made it colder. But, yeah, some dry stuff got blown down, and we picked that up. We knocked some trees over, some dead trees over. So, yeah, we got a lot of firewood, and we're good for the night. So we just thought we'd do a podcast episode out here, just a little something different.
Yep. We've been talking about this for a while.
Yeah, and I've mentioned on the podcast before that, like, we kind of talked years ago, because every time we come camping, we kind of have these great discussions, and we're always like, man, we wish we would have recorded them. And we've done a lot of them on the podcast now so far, but we figured, we're out here, we'll record, and see what we can talk about. And like even like this morning we were talking about stuff, and last night, like we're not even podcasting, and just like paranormal stuff comes up, and
right.
So just to talk a little bit about where we are, we're probably about a half mile from Josh's truck in the parking area. We're on the northern side of the park, near Looking Glass Pond, and
We're in a lean-to.
We're in a lean-to, probably the smallest lean-to we've ever been in, but it's not tiny. It's just smaller than the other ones we've been to.
Yeah.
By a little bit, not by much, but very nice lean-to, beautiful woods. We took a walk around the lake earlier. We have not seen or heard any animals, really. I mean, there's been something today chirping, and it sounds, I keep telling Josh, it sounds like a smoke detector that's, the battery is dying, and it just chirps like every minute and a half, and it's just got that same chirp. Yeah. But clearly it's not a smoke detector.
Right, yeah.
We've seen a lot of deer tracks. We saw snowshoe hare tracks. We've seen probably coyote tracks, squirrel, but it's been quiet. Last night we slept. The only thing we heard last night was the dripping off the roof because it was warm. It was probably close to 40 all night.
Yeah.
And the lean-to roof was covered in snow, and that just dripped all night. But we didn't hear any animals. We didn't hear anything. We know that there are some Bigfoot sightings up in the Catskills, and I interviewed Gail Beatty a few episodes back, and she investigates this region. So hi, Gail, if you're listening. We haven't seen or heard anything yet, though. So, and there's a good amount of snow in here, probably a couple of inches. Again, it's been melting. But we have not seen any footprints. We have not seen anything, not even anything near the lean-to. I mean, we've seen some deer stuff, some deer tracks. But it's been quiet. Last night we slept. The only thing we heard last night was the dripping off the roof because it was warm. It was probably close to 40 all night. And the lean-to roof was covered in snow, and that just dripped all night. So not exactly close to the lean-to, but 50, 100 yards away.
Yeah.
Nothing approaching us, but
And no people either. I mean, no man or beast.
Yeah.
Nobody's come by. And usually when we stay at these lean-tos, lean-tos tend to be pretty popular. If people aren't sleeping overnight in a lean-to, they'll at least hike by and come down and, have a lunch or quick breakfast or something like that. But we haven't seen anybody come by. And we looked at the register for the lean-to, and it looks like somebody was here the day before we got here. They just came here and got lunch. And looking at the roster there, the register, there was quite a few people that came through, but it was really just lunches. Just taking a quick hike with the dog. It wasn't anything, significant. There was one guy who was. He was where, from Long Island, was it? Or Brooklyn?
Brooklyn, yeah.
So this lean-to is actually right along what's called the Long Path. And the Long Path goes all the way up from New York City. I believe it's in Manhattan. Comes all the way up north, comes through this, right past this lean-to, and continues north until it gets to the Thatcher Park area in Albany. Just south of Albany. So according to the register here, he was out for 8 weeks.
Yeah.
And this was just, how long ago was it?
That was
a couple months ago?
I forget, honestly, but it wasn't even that. No, it wasn't even that long ago.
Yeah.
Maybe a month ago. But he said, yeah, he's out here for like 8 weeks.
So 8 weeks. Now, we don't know if he stayed 8 weeks in the lean-to. I highly doubt that. But if he was taking the long trail, like solo hiking it all the way to Albany, I could see that in the wintertime potentially taking 8 weeks.
Yeah.
Taking the trails, and they're not. A lot of them are not easy. Some of them can get easy at times, but trails are tough. Even in the summertime, but in the wintertime they're a lot tougher. Depending on snow, rain, ice, sleet, hail, all those conditions, it can make a really tough hike. So apparently this guy, props to him for 8 weeks on the trail, and he stayed at this lean-to, and so we'll give him a little shout out, because that's pretty hardcore.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. I couldn't read his last name. That was part of the problem. Like,
right,
it was kind of faded, and so I don't know his last name. So, dude, if you're listening to this and you know who you are, let us know. But we'll give you a shout out, because I mean,
You're a gangster.
we were here yesterday, and just a little bit of rain and drip from the trees, and if we didn't drag in 2 piles of wood, dry wood, we couldn't have. I mean, we didn't start a fire, but we could have. But without that, I doubt we would have gotten a fire started yesterday. Yeah. Like, it just, and then you're just kind of hanging out in the lean-to and hunkering down for the night, and that's rough on a trip.
Yeah.
Especially if you're by yourself, and I believe he was. I think it was just him. And to just sit in the lean-to all night, not be able to have a campfire.
Yeah, it's gonna suck.
It gets dark out here at like 5:30.
Yeah.
This time of year. I mean, probably a little earlier when he was passing through a month ago or whatever.
For sure.
Yeah. So I mean, we actually found you when you and Pete passed through here back in January of 2018. You guys are still in the register.
Yeah, so this is funny because, like, when I started my YouTube channel, it was back in 2018. My buddy and I, Pete, and he's on a few of my videos on my channel, Diaz Wilderness Adventures. But this was my first lean-to that I ever stayed in, and Pete, Pete had been here before, and we actually came out during a bomb cyclone, so the temperature was -40. So it was -40 wind chill out here, and we kept getting, the weather report kept saying, if you're outside with exposed skin for more than 5 minutes, you can get frostbite. It's just really extreme conditions. And so Pete and I thought this would be perfect for camping and perfect for my first YouTube video. Might as well start it off with a bang, right? So we came out here, and we just spent one night, and it was damn cold. We really couldn't keep a fire going. We had some steaks, and had some drinks and played some cards, and got up in the morning, get a quick breakfast, and we were out of here. But yeah, this is my first lean-to, so it has special significance for me. We were actually able to find Pete and I's names on the roster, And that was interesting because I didn't think they'd have one. That was back in January 2018.
2018, yeah.
I didn't think that it would go back that far, but it was still on there. So that was a nice little surprise.
Yeah, very cool little find. Mm-hmm. So I think we're going to put another log on the fire.
Sure, you want me? I can do that.
Yeah, you want to do that?
Yeah, go ahead.
I'll do a little promo here. Josh and I are drinking Trailblazer beers from Flagship Brewing Company on Staten Island. So, Jay, if you're listening from Flagship, anybody from Flagship, we love your beers. We're drinking the Trailblazers tonight because it's got Bigfoot on it, and we're all about Bigfoot, and we're in the woods and blazing trails. Not really, but our trail was about 12 minutes in, very easy. We were surprised at how easy it was to get here. It was probably the easiest hike we've ever done.
Oh,
by far. And that snow is coming down. Pretty cool. So yeah, I love the beer. Thank you guys.
Yes,
and we got some logs on the fire. And I'm just going to turn my camera to show it a little bit. I'll try to intercut this in the podcast episode, but there you go. There's our fire. Nice. And yeah, we don't really have many stories to talk about tonight. We've kind of told our personal stories, and we haven't had any experiences on this trip or the last trip. We went to Faro Lake back in October, and that was an insane hike, probably close to 6 miles, give or take, I would think.
Yeah. That was a great trip. But you know what we did do this morning that we didn't mention?
Yeah.
I know you did the live feed of it, but the cemetery. That was pretty interesting.
Yeah, I did a live feed on Instagram this morning, and there's a little private cemetery right at the trailhead and parking area. It's marked on the map as being private property, but it's an open cemetery. It's old. I think it goes back to like the late 1800s, 1870s, I think 1874.
Yeah.
1872. And the newest burials are kind of like the 1920s. I think we saw some like 1929, maybe 1927. Mm-hmm. Some children, there was one plot, very sad. Some children were buried there, like 8 years old, 5 years old. Mm-hmm. Most of the people buried there had a similar last name as the Shavers, right?
Yeah, Shaver, yep.
So when Josh and I return, we're going to do some research on this area because we've passed by a lot of stone walls back here. And this is state land, but there's tons of stone walls. We did a little exploring near Looking Glass Pond, and we found what looked to be like the ruins of an old mill. And we got fairly...
that was on the other side of the road from Looking Glass Pond. So
right.
We cut over, yeah.
But, so it does look like there was a settlement here, and we did find some, like, memorial plaques over by the pond.
Yeah.
Talking about people who had, like, lived on this mountain or this hill, and people were remembering them. So, and there's nothing here, like I said, and Josh said, like, we haven't seen a soul since we've gotten here. Which I think is a first for any of our camping trips, and we've done some deep ones, and
we always tend to see someone either at the beginning or somewhere towards the end.
Yeah, there's someone in the parking lot or just early on in the trail, or on the way out there coming in.
Yeah,
but we have maybe we'll see somebody tomorrow on our way out, but we thought we'd see people today.
Yeah,
but so we checked out the cemetery. Didn't do any ghost hunting. It just felt a little. Well, one, I didn't have my equipment, but two, it feels to me, it always feels a little disrespectful, and I don't know why. Like, why ghost hunting certain places is disrespectful, while in other places it is. I mean, maybe that's a good discussion for it. Yeah. Like, what do you feel about that, brother? Because you're,
yeah. I mean, I don't do ghost hunting on the like you do in that sense, so I don't know too much about it, but. I would think that, I could see where maybe a family member could be like, okay, you're trying to contact our, deceased grandmother, and, that's, it's a relative of ours, and, you really shouldn't be doing that at least without permission or something. I'd assume they might want to know that that's going on, or whatever the case may be. But yeah, I don't know. What do you think about that? I mean,
I understand both sides of the argument. Because I go to Gettysburg a lot, and people say, and we don't go ghost hunting there, but, my dad's really into Civil War history, my uncle, my son. We all love the history there. And again, you can't go there without walking by, like, a ghost hunting storefront. They run tours, they run haunted tours, and, we've seen people trespassing in Gettysburg. We've been out late at night and people just in other people's yards because it's a Civil War building, and they're out there with flashlights and they're trespassing. And I don't know. I've never really liked ghost hunting at graveyards. I just feel like that's their final resting place, and I've always enjoyed ghost hunting more to help people. If someone contacts us and says, "Hey, we're having experiences in our home or in our business, and we just want proof, or we want you to debunk it." And again, a lot of people who contact us know that we debunk things, and 90% of our cases that we ever worked on, we were able to debunk it one way or the other, and just say, move your alarm clock, or move your refrigerator, or get this wiring fixed, or this window's drafty, that's why you're feeling cold spots. So I think most people call us in because they want us there, and so it is with permission. It is, and we don't necessarily have permission to contact the dead person, but we may not always know who it is. A family will move into a house, and 6 months in, they're like, "Hey, we're hearing footsteps every night, and doors are closing, and our kids are scared, so please come in and, can you help us?" So for that, I really have no ethical qualms, but I feel like ghost hunting at Gettysburg or ghost hunting in a cemetery, that no one really asked you to come there and do that.
Right, yeah.
And, the people at Gettysburg, they died for their country. They died horrific deaths. And to go there just to kind of take videos and get YouTube hits, that kind of rubs me a little bit the wrong way. And again, people can do what they want to do. I'm not here to judge. It just doesn't quite sit right with me. And same thing for cemeteries. I mean, that's where people's relatives and loved ones are buried and laid to rest. And I think that's the key word, is like rest. Let them rest. Like, don't go to a cemetery and try to, dig up paranormal activity, figuratively, don't go dig up literally either. But, and I've always just felt too, like if I'm going to believe in ghosts, and ghosts as we know them, of the spirits of people who were once living, I know if I die and it's like, oh, hey, I'm a ghost, I can go anywhere and do anything. The last place I'm hanging out is around my decomposing body.
True.
Like I'm not hanging out there.
Right.
I'm going to go check on my children, my grandchildren, my relatives, my loved ones, my friends. Like, I'm not going to be hanging around a cemetery. So just from a purely, even if you just want to look at it from a logical standpoint, like if there are spirits of the dead roaming Earth and they can go anywhere, they're probably not hanging around the cemetery that they're buried in. I mean,
makes sense. Yeah, I don't know what would tie them there. It's
right. And I kind of understand the Gettysburg thing, or any other sort of traumatic, murder, suicide.
Right.
These sort of unexpected deaths, or tragic deaths that might tie some energy there. And people say, oh, Gettysburg has an energy, and it does. I don't know if it's necessarily paranormal. Like, you go there and you can feel the magnitude of what happened there. And it's mainly because that's...
kind of like if you go to Auschwitz or something like that.
Exactly.
You see, like, all the shoes and the suitcases and stuff like that. Like, there's a terrible history, a terrible bloodshed, and terrible atrocities that happen there. But what's interesting is when we come out on these trips, we're starting to find these things. Like when we went to John Pond, there was and it's interesting because it all has like some history tied to it. And you go and I had no idea that there was this black diphtheria,
right.
And you go and you see these graves. Like you'll be on a trail and you'll be hiking for miles, and all of a sudden there's a little graveyard,
right? And
people live there in the middle of the wilderness. And there's like old ruins that are there that are kind of moss covered and collapsed on themselves, but there's still remnants of people that live there and hacked their living out of the wilderness, and they it's interesting to see these grave sites. So I really appreciated seeing this today, and I like the one that we saw at John Pond. I thought that was interesting.
Yeah, because those were two children of a family that lived there.
Yeah,
and I think it was like a 14-year-old girl and an 11-year-old girl.
right.
And yeah, but it's just like deep in the woods. You're far from. I mean, even the parking area is far from kind of civilization, and then
Yeah.
you're kind of hiking 3 miles into the woods, and just there's a little wooden plaque that says the cemetery is up this way, and you walk up, and sure enough, there's a couple of gravestones for two children who died in, I believe it was like the 1800s.
Right.
And then, I think a little bit before that on the trail, there was ruins of a house, and we kind of speculated maybe that's where they lived. But it was just like the foundation and the basement, and
Right, yeah.
there's trees growing up through it now and bushes, and it's not a house per se, it's just the foundation. But to just know that people used to, live back there, little towns and little settlements, and
Right.
like right out here, there's the parking lot, and there's a cemetery, and then there's just road as far as the eye can see in either direction. Like there's just nothing, and it's just like this weird little cemetery. Not
Right.
weird, but just it's weird in its placement.
Yeah.
In modern day, because it's just there's this trail, a
Right.
road through the park here,
Yeah.
and then there's the parking area and the trailhead and a cemetery. It's just it's not a weird cemetery. It's just weird to come across. It just was
Yeah.
not something we were.
Yeah, I didn't
expecting
expect
to
that
come
at all.
across.
Yeah, and the thing too is that a lot of those graves had collapsed too. Like they were probably just buried in a pine box, and then after 50 years, everything just rotted and decomposed and collapsed in on itself, and the dirt falls in.
Yeah, there were a lot
feet.
of them that were collapsed in on themselves, and
So I was trying to be as respectful as possible, like go around those, and
yeah, we're trying to watch where we stepped, and I mean, and some of the monuments were very large, like clearly belonging to families with wealth and means, and then some of them were tiny, like
just little like blocks,
like a little brick, like a little thin brick or whatever, or
Yeah.
just like a little tiny, almost like a flat stone.
right? Yeah,
And a lot of them the cemetery is not well maintained because a lot of the stones were hard to read. Like we couldn't
right.
make out.
A lot of them were broken too, like fell over.
broken or fell over, which again is not surprising up here. They have harsh weather, winters and summers, and if it's not maintained, and we did see someone had put flowers on one of the graves. We showed that on the Instagram live, which my signal up here is bad, so I'm hoping that published to my Instagram account. I know people were watching it while we were live, but I don't know if it's saved. I hope it did. It didn't save to my phone, so I'm hoping we can go back and look at that, because that was kind of a spontaneous thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, the one at John Pond was kind of cool too, and just an interesting find.
Yeah, those two kids. I mean, that was a big deal back then. Wasn't the movie? Was it Balto? There's a cartoon. It's like not a Disney cartoon, but it's an animated cartoon. It's called, I believe it's called Balto, where it's the same thing. They're like, there's a town and they're way out in Alaska or something, and the kids get the black diphtheria.
Yeah.
And so this dog, they send this dog. I don't remember all the details, but apparently the dog brings them, he has a little backpack or something, and he brings them all these vials of medicine.
Oh, okay.
And saves the town, and it's actually a true story. I'll have to look it out when I get a chance. Look it up when we get back home.
Yeah, definitely.
But speaking of looking up, I definitely want to look up some of the history of this area, because I thought that was pretty interesting.
Yeah, there's all those memorial plaques and just all this. I mean, tons of stone walls. I mean, we passed by a bunch just on the hike in, and again, the hike in was not very long. I mean, we were pulling sleds and backpacks and all our gear, and it took us 12 minutes from the car to get here. So,
right,
quarter of a mile maybe, and then beyond the lean-to, if you keep going, there's more stone walls, and it's just.
Mm-hmm.
And just before I forget, you can, if anyone's listening to this, you could probably hear squeaks and stuff going on in the background. There's some wind. And there's some trees rubbing against each other, so it may sound like chatter or animals. To us, it has sounded like ducks. It has sounded like monkeys. It has sounded like
we thought it was people.
We thought people were walking in
to the lean-to.
Because right now there's a tree like right in front of us, 20, 30 yards in front of us that may be squeaking, but there's one off to the left and that was going earlier, and that's the one I kept thinking was a
I kept
woman.
thinking it was a person. Yeah.
Yeah, it sounded like women coming in, just like muffled voices.
Yeah.
But it's high pitched. It's, this one in front of us now just kind of sounds like monkeys. So I don't know how well the microphone is picking it up, but if anybody's listening and saying, "Oh my God, shut up! There's Bigfoot in the background,"
Yeah.
or "There's a ghost," like it's just the trees. They're all wet. They're all bare, and the wind is just blowing enough where they're rubbing up against each other and making weird noises.
Speaking of that, now the wind's just blowing the
Smoke.
campfire smoke in our faces. So we have these huge clouds of smoke coming in our face.
Yep. So you're going to smell like campfire tomorrow. when
Oh,
you
for
get home.
sure. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So this has been interesting. And last time, like I said, last time I was here, there was it was fresh snow. So I want to say there was probably close to 8-9 inches of snow. So it was and it was powder, and it was negative 40 degrees out. It was windy. I had on all my winter gear, like cold weather gear. You needed it. And this trip has been very mild, very easy. Like Jason said, the hike in was so simple, and we couldn't believe it when we got here. We're like, "Wow, that was it."
Yeah.
It was like 12 minutes. We're like, "Holy cow!"
Because we always try to time our hikes in just so when we leave, we know approximately how long it'll take us to get back out, because that can sometimes dictate when we pack up and leave, because
Right,
we have
yeah.
to time getting back to the car, getting back home for, if Josh's wife has to get to work, or I got to get home before dark
Right.
because I can't see in the dark. So we timed it, and it was like, okay, and by the time we got, Josh was like, "There's a lean-to," and I looked at my clock, and I was like, okay, that took us 12 minutes to leave the car to the time we saw the lean-to, and
Yeah,
so maybe 13 minutes before we got to the lean-to, but still very quick walk.
yeah,
And that was with dragging 2 bundles of wood, a full cooler full of food and beer and water,
yeah.
axes, and
So what did we have? We had yesterday. We had. Okay, what did we have for lunch? We had subs.
yeah,
Lunch.
we just bought pre-made subs just because we weren't sure if we can get a fire going,
Yeah.
or if we wanted to get one going. We didn't know if the lean-to would be taken. We have our tents with us in the truck just in case we had a tent camp somewhere.
Yeah.
But I guess no one's crazy enough to camp out in the lean-to in the winter like we
Yeah,
are.
in February. Yeah. Then we had excuse me. What did we have for dinner last night? I can't even remember.
Dinner we had. Oh God.
Did we have dinner?
No, we didn't have dinner. We had the trail mix.
Oh yeah, it was trail mix.
just did
Yeah,
trail- we
yeah,
weren't
that was it.
hungry.
Yeah, we weren't hungry. That sub, it was almost a foot long sub.
I would say even longer than that.
Yeah, it was big. Yeah,
It made the footlongs at Subway look
yeah,
tiny.
that's true.
It was a
Yeah.
big sub, and
So-
we just weren't hungry. We just noshing on the trail mix.
Trail mix. Yeah, and then this morning we made bagel sandwiches with egg, bacon, and cheese.
Yeah.
And that was interesting because we forgot some of the essentials. Like we forgot butter, we forgot like a spatula. So Jason's using what were we using, like a knife or something to try to
It was my multi-tool, and I had like
Flip
there was,
the
there
egg
was
with
like a
a
little
multi-tool.
saw in there, and I flipped that out because there's only like clean portion of my multi-tool that I don't ever really, because I have a camp saw, so I don't need the saw on my little, because that would take forever.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like for sawing a twig, and at that point, just snap it in half. But yeah, I was using that to kind of flip the eggs, and it was good for grabbing the bacon too, because it has like those crossed teeth.
Oh yeah.
So it was great for like pulling the bacon out.
Yeah.
And just grabbing onto them and moving those around. So yeah, those great sandwiches this morning.
Yeah, and then we just had we had a late breakfast.
breakfast.
Like we slept in till what, 10
Yeah,
roughly?
Yeah.
And then we started cooking at 10:30. We ate breakfast at 11. So we really just skipped lunch, and then we went for like a 2-hour hike. Around Looking Glass Pond and just all over the place. We just explored, went down some trails, and then we came back and collected some more firewood, bucked it all up, and piled everything up, and then we made steak and cheese fajitas.
Yeah.
And we just had that, and we couldn't even eat all the steak because there's just so much. We always bring too much food. And that was-
Yeah, we always think we're going to burn so many calories and get so hungry, and
yeah.
so we always bring tons of food.
We've never
And
been
then-
hungry.
Yeah, then we're never really starving, and
It's like afraid we're going to be hungry or something. and
Yeah.
We never are.
yeah, we never are. And We just ended up napping or whatever.
Yeah,
Not
we took
eating.
like an hour.
Yeah, we took a nap for a little while, because it did get cold
Yeah, it did.
for a while, and just after the hike and after collecting the wood, it's just there's only so much we can do to kind of keep the blood flowing and stay warm. So we just went into our. I tried to fix my sleeping bag, which the zipper broke, so
that's a whole other thing tonight.
a whole other thing tonight because it's supposed to go into the 20s, and I have a summer sleeping bag, so I'm going to bundle up in that and then try to throw in my winter sleeping bag around me, but I can't really close it up. So,
Right.
But I have lots of layers, so I should be fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's been it was clear today. There's a lot of blue skies today, but tonight it's cloudy again.
Yep.
And I don't know if it's still snowing, but it's been snowing on and off
Yeah.
for like the past hour.
Right.
So no stars. We're not going to see any UFOs tonight like we saw at Fawn Lake.
Right. Yeah.
Which UFO, we just unidentified. We don't know what it was.
Right.
But Josh, Dustin, and myself saw it. It was purple and moving very fast and looked like a star. But I got to get you and Dustin on to talk about that. I mean, not that there's much of a story to it, but
Yeah.
it was
pretty
so
much,
quick.
Yeah. Yeah.
I pretty much just told it. We saw.
I'm still hoping to get, there's the one podcast, the one UFO encounter from, I won't say names, but I have about 4 family members and a very good friend of the family. And actually a late family member that's no longer with us was there as well. And they saw all of them witnessed a UFO. Probably the most descriptive and just crazy UFO sighting I've ever heard. I mean, well, there's some crazy ones on TV, but as far as like these are people I trust,
Right.
and what they saw was just phenomenal. And I don't want to give it away because if that could go on the podcast, it'd be amazing.
Yeah.
But you had multiple people there to corroborate what had happened and what they saw, and yeah. Hopefully, I'm going to talk to them. Hopefully, I can get them on the podcast. We might have to change some names.
Oh yeah. We can
Blur out some
we can blur
voices
out
a little
voices
bit. But yeah, because I don't know if they'll come on. But
yeah.
But if I can get I might be able to get 4 of them on.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll see what I can do.
Yeah, and I always offer that to people if they, because I know my friend John's got some people he said he talked to who might want to come on, but they want to be anonymous. So I said, that's fine. They don't have to turn their camera on. I don't have to use their real name. And, if anybody ever wants to come on and just tell your story, you can be anonymous. You don't have to show your mug like I do.
Yeah.
But yeah, that would be a great, because I know the story. And it would be a phenomenal story. I've heard part of it firsthand from one of the people who experienced it, and I think it would make a fantastic episode because, again, a lot of the stuff that I've had on so far has been interesting, but it's been kind of, again, like our purple light thing that we saw.
Yeah.
Like, was it a UFO? I don't know. Like, it's UFO in that it's unidentified. It was flying, and it was an object. But this story has a lot more detail.
This is about as legit a UFO sighting as you could possibly, conceive of.
Right.
And it wasn't just one person. You had multiple people there, all attesting to the same thing. Yeah. And then the fact, well, I'll throw this little tidbit out there. The interesting thing, and they might mention it if they come on, but the interesting thing is that they all forgot about it.
Right.
And, to me, that's how do you forget something like that? Like you and I, we saw that like purple light in the sky and we're like, oh my gosh, we'll never forget that.
Right.
But to see something so unbelievably bizarre, and I won't ruin the story, but then for all of them to forget about it, and it's like you think of those stories of the Men in Black and,
not that they forgot about it, but it's almost like, until one of the others like mentioned it, they'd be like, "Oh yeah, that did happen."
Yeah,
it was almost like not that they fully forgot, but it just kind of
right.
Yeah, like you said, almost like a Men in Black sort of thing, where it's just like something is like suppressing it.
Yeah.
In their minds,
They were wondering about They were wondering if that was maybe alien induced somehow.
Yeah, I mean, very very possible.
I don't know.
And again, you hear a lot of that in UFO stories where there's missing time.
Yeah.
And what does that mean? It just means, it's not that the time just didn't happen. It's just, they're driving in their car, and the next thing they know, it's 3 hours later. So
Right.
they don't have memory of what happened. And usually it's not until like hypnosis, or I've heard stories where people like watching a movie and that'll spark like, holy shit, I remember that happened to me.
Yeah.
So it's weird how like, their memory sort of got suppressed, and like until it's kind of brought up,
Right.
they're not like, oh yeah, I got a story about that. Like you would think, especially considering
Yeah.
what happened, and this, again, we don't want to give away the details, but
Right,
considering what happened, you'd think that's something that
You just never would forget.
you're not going to forget. And
something-
anybody even remotely interested
Mm-hmm.
in UFOs or the paranormal, you're going to kind of run and tell them, you're like, man, do I have a story for you? But it's almost just like got to be like pried out of them a little, not pride,
Right,
but like,
yeah.
they got to like really be reminded, like, remember that? Like, oh yeah.
Yeah. And for some people, it's a disturbing experience, a frightening experience, where they'd rather forget, rather than keep reliving a memory of something. You look at it, what was it, Travis Walton?
Yeah.
He obviously he goes and tells his story, but I mean that's a traumatic story.
Yeah, and he's such, he's a very sincere guy. He's a nice guy. I talked to him online briefly
Oh,
years
really?
ago. Yeah, and just and again, I'm not saying this makes his story completely true or not. I don't think he's lying. I think
Right.
whatever happened to him, he believes
Sure.
his story, that it's true. But he's just such a nice guy and sincere, and he tells his story a lot. But
Yeah.
it's a freaky story, and I think he did have some missing time too, and it sort of came back to him later. And
Right.
just you do hear these stories where people miss, there's time missing,
Yeah.
or there's
Yeah.
parts of their memory that they don't remember.
Right, for sure. Yeah.
They'll remember seeing a craft, and then they remember the craft leaving, but then they're like, okay, I didn't watch it for 45 minutes or 2 hours.
Yeah,
Like, where did that
exactly.
time go?
Yeah.
So, freaky stuff. And just to jump on something you were just saying, like, it traumatizes people. A lot of people who haven't had paranormal experiences are always like, oh, I want to have one. I want to see Bigfoot. I want to see a UFO. And most people who I know who have seen these things wish they hadn't.
Right.
Like,
yeah.
once you do see it, once you do have that experience, you're like, yeah, I could have gone without that.
Yeah.
And again,
Yeah.
like some of my UFO stuff that I've seen in the sky, and again, I call it UFOs just because it's unidentified. I don't know.
Right.
And we were kind of talking about that this morning. I've talked about it on the podcast before, the black triangle
Oh yeah. Yep.
that again, we're talking about that this morning.
Yeah. Yep.
Again, I don't know what it was, and it wasn't a traumatic experience. It's not something that I'd be like, oh, I never want to see that again.
Right.
It was just weird, and most of my experiences that I've had have been weird, and nothing that traumatized me enough where I was like, I never want to experience that again. But the story you're referring to and the people like
Right.
if that happened to me, I would be like, yeah, I'm good. I don't need that to ever happen again.
Right. Oh yeah, for sure.
And I wish it didn't happen the first time.
Yeah. Exactly.
Because
yeah.
that just sounds, again, we'll save the story for a future episode, hopefully.
Yeah.
But it's one of those stories that, when you hear it, you're like, yeah, I'm glad I didn't see that.
Right. Yeah.
Did you hear something?
I heard something out there, but yeah. Probably just the wind.
Probably just the wind.
So many things out here that go bump in the night, and it's almost impossible to get a good night's sleep. On all of our adventures and all of our trips, we never sleep. Like
Nah.
we'll sleep for patches of like half hour, and even that's broken up, and we're tossing and turning. But there's always just bumps in the night that happen, and
Well, even last night we heard the shovel fell over.
yeah, the aluminum shovel. that we
Aluminum
had.
shovel fell over, and we both woke up and were like yelling,
Yeah.
like, get! Like, because
Exactly.
we thought something came into the camp,
Yeah, that's the knee-jerk reaction.
That's the knee jerk.
So you hear something out there and you just go, get out of here, and oh man, that just reminded me of a story. One of the first times I wilderness camped was with my dad, and we were out in the Adirondacks, and we had went fishing. Like we had set up our camp, and we went to get some last minute fishing, at dusk. And we're coming in, you know, and it was already getting dark. You know, like it was already like we're barely able to see to get back onto shore. And we hear, you know, crack, snap, huge branches breaking.
Wow.
You know, something's walking through the woods by our camp. So we basically we go in, and I'm like, oh man. And I always carry a firearm with me when I go in the wilderness. And that particular time, I had my 12 gauge with some slugs in it. And so my dad was super paranoid. He was like, you know, he took the 12 gauge and he just shot it a couple times in the darkness. It was so damn loud. Well, anyway, we figured that scared it off, whatever it was. But so we go in the tent, and, you know, we hang out, you know, we do what we do, and then we go to bed. And I remember laying down, and it was my first time in sleeping in the wilderness, and I was just paranoid. You know, I was paranoid about this bear. I'm like, it's gonna come back. You know, it's gonna eat us alive. You know, and I just couldn't get it out. I couldn't shake the fear factor. And but eventually, we both fell asleep, and then I remember like hearing rustling, right? You know, near me, and it was pitch black. It was like super dark out. And all I know is that I thought it was a bear. And so I just started yelling. I was like, ah, ah, but I was half asleep too. So whatever came out was not necessarily like your typical bear yell. It was more like, ah, 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 you know, because like half half conscious, you know, but like the fight and flight response was coming out, you know, and as I'm getting roused, you know, waking up, and I yelled really loud. Well, come to find out, it was just my dad getting up to go to the bathroom, and I scared the living daylights out of him because, you know, he like literally jumped because I just started yelling. But it was, you know, like I thought it was a bear. In my mind, you know, I couldn't see him, and I didn't know what was going on, and it scared the crap out of me, and I just started yelling real freaking loud. But yeah, that's typically what I do, you know, what we do, you know,
Yeah.
if we hear noises, we just start yelling. And I remember one time, when we went to Pasico Poly Road.
I was just going to mention that, yeah.
There's like bears everywhere, you know. And that one night, you know, I heard specifically something try to open the door to my truck. You know, that sound of when you go to open a door and your door's locked and the handle of the door snaps back down, that clunk sound. And it's a very distinct sound. And when somebody does it, you know what sound that is. And
we had the car was right there. Like
the car was
like
nearby
the one
the tents,
car
yeah.
camping. Like, because usually we hike in. This is like the only time we've ever had
very,
the car like
remote
right
road.
like we're just tenting like right in front of the car pretty much.
Yeah, and the food was in the car.
Right.
So so anyway, yeah. So I'm, you know, having my, you know, using my key fob to turn on my car alarm. And, you know, I'm hitting the panic button, so whatever's going on, you know, whatever's around there is just, you know, startled by it. And, yeah, that was an interesting night. But we didn't sleep that well because we knew that there was
because
bears out there.
Yeah, we went there expecting, because this was like mid-November. It was still fairly warm. Mm-hmm. And it's car camping. It's, you know, Poly Pasico Road. And we thought there'd be, you know, other people camping. And there was nobody. It was just desolate. And we checked out a few campsites before deciding on which one to stay at, and every site just had signage up like bears, beware of bears seen in the area, like all posted by the park ranger. So everywhere we turned, like it just seemed like on every tree there was like warnings about bears. And we were just like, fuck, we're gonna see bears tonight. Yeah. And I remember even after I put up my tent, I didn't notice this as I was putting it up, but after I put it up, I noticed there was like a big pile of bear scat behind it. And I'm like, man, this is like 4 inches from my tent. And a bear just like shat here. Yeah. Like probably earlier today or last night or whatever. Because it was still pretty fresh too. And I was like, damn it.
Yeah, a nice steamy pile of bear poo.
And yeah, I remember the bear kept trying to get in your truck and you kept setting off the panic button and the horn and the alarm would go off. And and then everything would be quiet for a while. And then you'd hear the door handle jiggling again. And
we'd hear like, I mean, and then it was just odd noises. Like we had our, remember we had our folding camp chairs. Yeah. That have like they're like vinyl, right? So that sound of like something scraping on vinyl, that like zip sound of like if you have something sharp and you scrape it across something vinyl, it's going to make a zip sound. And I was hearing that, and it's like right by the tents, and I'm like, something is messing with the freaking chairs. So I barely slept that night, and I remember you were real sick that night too. Like I don't know if you had a bad hot dog or something, but you were like real sick, and it was cold. We got up that morning, and it was just, I mean, really. And what was that, November? And like
and we had packed like extra blanket because we were car camping. So we're like, we'll take extra blankets. I didn't take my 0-degree bag, but I had my summer bag, which is a 40-degree bag. Not even a summer bag, but I use it in the summer because the Adirondacks, it can get cold. You can get like down to the mid 40s overnight, so it's a good bag. But and I had like a comforter with me and another blanket, and I woke up freezing.
Yeah. And then we ended up just cutting that trip short just because you were sick, and if you get sick, it's better just to call it and just go home and just no sense, and that was when COVID had hit too. So I was a little nervous. I was thinking, oh, maybe he's got COVID or something, I don't know. And a lot of things were out there. I mean, a lot of different symptoms were being put out there, and nausea and stuff like that. And I'm like, oh man, maybe he's got COVID. And you were coming from New York, and that's a whole other thing too, because the people that live out in the Adirondacks, like, they were getting really pissed off because people from the city were coming up,
right, going to restaurants,
and then all of a sudden you'd see a gas station along the way, COVID. People had COVID there, and then you'd see like in the Adirondacks and places where there's a population of maybe 50, if that, and people had COVID, and it's like, you know what I'm saying? It's like nobody, there's barely anybody here. How's this getting spread? Well,
right.
People were coming up from the city, fleeing the city, going and staying at their properties. Some would have, properties that they would stay out during the summer or whatever, and they would just kind of flee the city and go stay out there. But they were bringing COVID with them, and counties that had absolutely like almost zero populations were starting to get COVID. And it was, so, a lot of locals were getting really upset about that. And, but then again, the people from the city, if they own places back there, they have every right to be there. They pay taxes, that keep our roads and our those areas open. And, we do respect that. But, but it's that clash,
Yeah, but it was a rough time, and it was good to cut the trip short,
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, we probably wouldn't have slept any better the second. I mean, Scott had joined us that first night too. He didn't stay overnight, but he came out, and
I wish we got that one, that conversation on.
And that was kind of the birth of the podcast too.
It was.
Like embryonic stage, where, because like after that, Scott had mentioned like, oh, we should do a podcast, and that idea just kind of stuck in my head, and
and then Odd and Untold.
Here we are. So.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Wow.
And Scott's on a lot. You're on a lot. Both of you are on a lot.
Yep.
So
absolutely.
Yeah, so it turned into a cool thing, and but we just wanted to bring everybody along tonight and listen to the fire crackle and the weird noises and that we're hearing.
The scraping noises, and the chirps and the
chirps. Chirp keeps going. Like, I don't know if that's a bird or what. Like that. I don't know. It sounds almost electronic, but we're deep in the woods. Like, there's nothing.
And right now we don't have our headlamps on. We're just got the light of the fire, and it's not going really blazing high right now. It's like low medium right now.
Yeah.
And it's like pitch dark.
Yep.
But that fire is giving off a lot of heat. I can feel it's warming me up. So the wind has died down quite a bit, and things have settled down, which has been nice because it's been cold, rainy, windy. Yeah. So.
Yeah, it's good to have a second night. Like, first night where
just kind of evaluating.
Yeah, and most of our trips, I mean, the first winter trip we did, I mean, that took us like 3 hours to hike in.
Yeah.
Just because of it was like a 3-mile hike, but a lot of it was uphill. It was twisty and turny, and,
steep hills.
Steep hills. I dunked my foot in a freezing stream, and my foot got wet, and
your pants were frozen solid.
We were just not really fully prepared for that trip.
Yeah.
And we got there, we cooked up some food, and we were probably in our sleeping bags at like 6 o'clock at night, 6:30. Like we started like just the littlest tiny fire. I think we just made those Johnsonville.
Yeah, the sausages dogs or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, we had a few of those just to eat, and then we were like in our packs.
Out, yeah. That was a cold night. And then I remember it got down, the single digits.
Yeah, definitely. It had to have. 'Cause
it was absolutely freezing. And the lean-to we stayed at had like, it wasn't very well maintained. It was like, gaps between the logs, and wind was blowing through those gaps, and it was
Yeah, it wasn't much of a shelter.
yeah, it was cold, and what we do is I've got this big green canvas tarp, and we just kind of lash it to the entrance of the lean-to. Kind of gives us a fourth wall.
Yeah.
And a windbreak. So when we stay at lean-tos, primarily in the winter we'll do that. In the summer you don't really need to, but sometimes we do, depending on if it's really windy or something like that. But
yeah, like Farrow Lake, the first night we
didn't. Yeah,
it was beautiful waking up because it was nice and calm that night. But the second night got real windy.
Yeah. So
and it was cold. It was October, but it was like chilly October weather that weekend, and we had to put the tarp up just to kind of protect ourselves from, because we were that was like right on the lake.
Yeah, we were up high. Yeah, like it was like on a ledge, like a cliff. Yeah, that's what drew us to that lean-to, is because of the views, because it was an elevated cliff with a lean-to on top of it,
right.
And it was amazing. And but then again, yeah, I mean, along with the views, you're getting windswept,
right?
Because it's just coming across the lake and hitting you. Yeah.
Yeah. So. I guess we can wrap it up there. We got nothing else to really to report.
Yeah. Glad we could bring everybody along for this one.
Yeah. So this is just what it's, camping with Josh and Jason. What it's like, we kind of just have these discussions all day long, and we talk about other things too, but paranormal stuff always kind of pops up. And
always, yeah.
We talked a bunch this morning, and I'm kind of hesitant to try to bring it up again, because it's like trying to capture lightning in a bottle, like when it's not spontaneous, it's tough,
That was the thing, yeah. Like I was thinking about it. We had such a good conversation, went on for about an hour and a half. And I'm like, man, this would have been great for the podcast. We should save some of this.
Yeah, but we were talking about like psychics and cold readings and remote viewing, and then we got into like Nazism and the occult, and like how they were like interested in the occult and sort of pursuing.
Yeah, CERN. Yeah,
we got into that. And then we ended up like with magicians and like David Blaine and David Copperfield and
making the Statue of Liberty disappear.
Yeah, like how they did all that. And,
yeah.
So it was a really cool conversation, and that was just us like not wanting to get out of our sleeping bags because we were so cozy and warm.
Yeah.
And not super hungry yet. Usually the hunger or nice weather will get us out, because I know like I remember at Cedar River Flow, I mean, I woke up and you were already out on the lake. And it was it like just clicked
fishing,
on. It was like 6:59 a.m. And I woke up and I'm like, where's Josh? Like I got up and the lake was just covered in fog.
It was beautiful.
Yeah. I heard you paddling out there. I saw the boat was gone. I'm like, oh, he went out fishing.
Yeah. Oh, I couldn't wait to go out that morning. Yeah.
But in the winter we tend to sleep in, because it's just it's too cold. Like it wants to get up. In the summer, it's the birds are singing, and if you have nice weather, it's good to get up early.
And it depends where you're camping too. Like here, it's a lean-to and it's along a trail. There's really nothing else to do here except camp and just talk and hang out. Whereas if you camp at like a stream, you can swim, or a lake, you can fish. You can go kayaking. You can there's lots of things you can do when there's a lake. But when you're one just at a lean-to or a campsite just in the middle of forest, then there's really not that much you can do.
Right.
Right. Most of the time is getting wood, prepping meals, and just
that's
hanging out and talking.
That's
really it.
That's what you do in the winter. You got to stay warm, so it's chopping up wood, cooking.
Yeah.
Or you're laying down and talking and just
it's a combination of like doing work, laying down, eating, peeing, pooping.
Yeah.
Well,
in the summer you put out your chairs, you get some sun, you drink a few beers, you sit by the lakeside, I mean, even if you're relaxing, it's nice out, you can do that. But like in this weather, you sit down long enough, you just it's like uncomfortably cold. Even though it's been mild, it's just you still kind of get chilly and
sometimes you just got to get up and do something to get the blood flowing and warm up a little bit.
Yeah, that's why it was good. We did the hike today. We went to the cemetery. We chopped up a lot of wood today. So
yeah.
All right. Anything else you want to add to the convo?
No, that's about it. I'm glad we could do this one.
Yeah, this is cool. So just a little taste of what it's like to be out with us. Obviously, we're much more fun in person. We got the real campfire going. We got tons of food.
Yeah.
If anybody wants to come with us, let us know. Scott, you got to come with us, dude. at some point.
We got to drag him out.
Got to drag Scott out. But anybody else, you guys want to come out with us? We're pretty good. We haven't died yet, so we like to think we're pretty good at this camping thing.
Yeah, we got it down.
We're okay. Yeah. We've survived every trip so far. So.
Yeah. So,
Well, you're much better at this than I am. I'm just kind of bumble along and.
Yeah, well, you've come to your own. You're quite the fire builder, and
Thank you.
you're good at wood collecting and cooking, and you're good at it.
Yeah, but
you're quite the cinematographer, and take great pictures. I'm always learning from you, like how to get that good shot.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I learned from Laura if she's listening.
Yeah. Thank you, Laura.
Thank you, Laura.
Got some good shots.
Yeah.
On the podcast and on some of my videos too.
Yeah. All right, everybody. So thanks for joining us and listening along to our little campfire chat tonight. And we'll see you next week.
All right. Take care, guys.
Take care. Rock and roll, everybody.
Moonlight glowing, it fades on me and you, casting dancing shadows